Well, good morning. It's the old farmer walking here. This was to be a walk into the farm to check things over, but I think it turned into a walk through the past. I hope you enjoy it. Well, good morning. It's the old farmer walking. I guess it's obvious that this morning's walk is not in Arizona. I'm back home, and this morning I'm walking into the farm. I like to go in 2, 3, 4 times a winter just to look things over. Make sure the mice aren't taking over. Make sure tractor tires are not gone flat. Just check things over. Our farm is up a seasonal road, so it's not serviced, not plowed in the winter. So on years like this one, there's snow, the road drifts in. So I can get within about 3 miles. Then I plan to walk a little further. So probably it'll be at least a 7-mile walk today. It's about, I don't know, 8:30 or so right now. I think about 7:30 when I left the truck. And it is so quiet out here. Well, yeah, pretty quiet. So I can hear over this way, there's gravel trucks hauling. And that road they're probably between 4 and 6 miles away. And that's the distant moan. Down this way, that old farmyard, if I can line it up, I could hear a raven down there. That's almost a half a mile. Hear a coyote out over here. I don't know how far, 1.5 miles, something like, yeah, there, if this thing picks it up. So anyway, this is my piece. This is amazing. This is where I'm at home. I am of this land. There's the old farmyard. This was the yard of my great-grandparents. Well, they didn't homestead. They purchased this farm in 1925 from the Cole brothers. Cole brother, I should say. So anyway, they weren't homesteaders. They weren't take part in the Homestead Act. like most people here did. So this area was opened up, well, I think probably 1910 on. So, well, the snow is pretty crunchy. There's been some melting and some rain. It's made it pretty crunchy, pretty noisy. So anyway, one has to think that for someone in Europe with a family, I think they had a family of 4 at that time, 4 or 5. I think 4 and one in the belly. Ended up being a family of 9, but anyway, they came from southern Russia, German colonies in the southern Russia along the Volga. My great-grandfather at times would have to go up river a ways looking for work. And on one of those journeys, he attended a political rally. The speaker was Lenin. And that made him nervous. He could see, he felt that there was hard times coming for the Germans in Russia. So the decision was made to look for a new ground. Argentina was their first choice. They made their way up the Volga and onto a boat and down to Liverpool, which apparently was pretty standard for that time. People migrating out of Europe would depart from Liverpool, but the ship that they were to board to make their way to Argentina had some sickness on it, so it had to be sanitized. So they had a few days layover, and they met up with a fellow there that convinced them Canada was the place to go. So to Canada it was. They landed in Winnipeg. Got a job as a carpenter, working on a crew building wartime houses in Winnipeg, and from there partnered up with a fella and moved further west and contracted building farmyards and homes until eventually he had enough money put aside to purchase this farm. Life for the Germans in Russia didn't go so well. They were able to correspond with family members for a little while, but slowly, one by one, they faded away. And we really don't know what happened other than they were gone. So I'm glad they made the journey. Well, it's worked out for me anyway. Real challenges resulted in my blessings in being able to farm this land. So this was Grossfather's dream. But it was a lot of huge trees, maples and poplar. They've all expired. They aged out. Leaves us with caraganas, which never really go away. That's these guys. There's the home he built for his family. I guess would have been 1925, 26, somewhere in there. So like I was saying, my great-grandparents didn't homestead. They purchased their farm. But one of the neighbors here that did homestead was Stan Smith. He came out from Hamilton and looked around and found a quarter section that he thought was suitable. Filed for homestead that winter and it was granted. So he came back out in the spring of 13. The story goes his father came with him. His uncle had a sawmill in Manitoba. So they loaded some lumber onto a rail car and shipped it Alsace. And then hauled it down here on a wagon. So he built his shack in the spring of 13, 12 by 12, with just a single slope roof. And started history, 1913. He lived in that shack as a bachelor until 1964. 12 feet square. This is his shack. The Stan shack as we know it. So this is it. If you can imagine living here on your own for 51 years. Dang. So I'm told there was an agreement amongst homesteaders during the winter. If one of them was going to town for resupply, they always get within eye shot of the neighbors and see if there's smoke coming from the chimney. If there's smoke, everything's good. Apparently it's not drafting very well. It's making heat though. So my uncle once told me that although Stan was a bachelor, he had a pretty good diet, quite a varied diet. Typically fried eggs and taters for breakfast, and then fried taters and eggs for supper. Well-rounded. That's pretty smoky. I might have to put my toast right in the pan. I remember when we were young, we grew up about 6 miles south of Stan. But our farm was in between his shack and the town of Empress. And we grew up we were Karagan apes, we were always out in the trees. And but when we saw Stan's truck coming down the road, we all head for the house because we knew he had treat for us. And he would sit in the chair in Mom's kitchen like that, and us kids, being 9 of us, we'd line up, and he'd reach in his pocket like that and bring out a roll of lifesavers and work his thumbnail in there and lift one off. We each got a lifesaver. That's it, eggs on toast. I suspect I'm not the first one to sit with my feet in the oven here. I come from a long line of farmers. It's my grandfather in the middle and his 4 boys, the stockier one being my father. My grandfather was 10 years old when they immigrated from Russia. He sold newspapers on the corner of Portage and Main in Winnipeg. Well, that's it. Stan's shack. So, like I was saying, Stan came out in 1913. On his homestead papers, it shows that he moved into this shack April, I think it was 28th. So in 1961, he decided he was going to retire and sold his farm
to my father and my uncle, who were a farming partnership at the time, and was going to move back to Hamilton to live with his sister. So in the fall, he boarded the train and went back to Hamilton, and just about went crazy. I spoke with a great nephew of his that remembers him coming back, and he said he used to go out in the backyard and just howl like a kite. He just couldn't take the city life after being out here for all those years. So in the spring he'd show up again and live in the shack for the summer. That went on for 3 years. And then in the fall of '64, it was in September, he knew it was his last time out here. He was having some health trouble. So he took his trunk package, belongings into a trunk, went into town, bought a plane ticket to Hamilton, and was coming back out to spend his last night in the shack. And it happened to be a little freezing rain that day. And about 2 miles from the shack, he slid off the road and overturned and was pinned under the running board. And that's how Stan finished. He too was out of the prairie. Wasn't meant for him to go back. Those trees there was the Trosley School. So that's where my great aunts and uncles walked to school. There is a book written by a teacher that taught there during the Depression, so during the 30s. And his experience, he didn't think was very good. But anyway, the book is called Why Shoot the Teacher? And there was a movie made by the same title. So if you can find it, that gives you an idea. He does paint a pretty clear picture of what it was like to live here for the short time he was here, I think just a year. So Why Shoot the Teacher? It's a pretty good history of the area. I enjoy these old yard sites so much, because as you can see that there's just not so many natural trees around here. Well, there was more at one time, but as the farm machinery gets bigger and the farmers get bigger, this here piece is now owned by Hutterites. It seems they have one thing on their mind, and that's to clear everything out of the way. They want nothing that would have to go around with the machinery, and then they'll start doing all the math about efficiency. Cost of seed, cost of herbicides, fuel, all that. But to me, I think about the animals that call this home, and the birds in the summer. These are actually packed full of nesting birds. just a rocket that you couldn't believe. And once it's gone, there's no place for them. So that just means there's less birds in the world. I find that very sad. But I don't expect this will be here much longer. I'm looking for a way in with these long snowshoes. Don't do very well in the bush. These are more about open prairie. Oh, there's a hooked toe. Speaking of long snowshoes. Okay, up again. Yeah, the long toes. You have to consciously keep your toes up, your points up, which means a lot of knee action. Lifting your knees every step, and you're in this deeper stuff. And if you miss that, the point goes under the snow and stops, and your body's still going forward. There's only one thing can happen after that. There's no saving it. One old wagon left here. I think that's all that's on this site anymore. The story goes that Father bought this at the auction sale and never got back to pick it up. Here it is. Well, that's the end of that walk. Bye for now. Enjoy your journey.